Welcome back, everybody, to the Level Up Podcast. I am Matt Johnson. This is where you learn how to go from an agent to an entrepreneur. And we've got Greg Harrelson here. And this is a incredibly interesting topic we're going to talk about today. This is something, Greg, that's been on your mind and something you've been experimenting with. You've got some hard numbers and data, and we're talking about a solution to the problem most agents are not even aware that they have. And so this is going to be incredible, whether you're a high producer, whether you're a team leader, a broker, it does not matter. This really is a conversation about how to get more sales and how to grow a business. And we're going to talk about some really fun stuff. So first of all, Greg, welcome.
Hey, great to be back. Great to be here. As you know, I'm just coming off of a trip from Peru. So we did the hidden Inca Trail in Peru. And I want to tell you, it was a blast. But when I was hiking up in the 14,000, elevation, it didn't seem that fun. So it seems fun now. Yeah. But I'm glad to be back at sea level.
I was going to say, I saw some of Brendan's pictures about just the damage it does to your feet, just walking that much. Yeah, I was going to say, it did not look very fun, but I'll take your word for it. All right. So what's your thinking process that kind of led down this path? Let's set up the problem first, and then we'll talk about the solution.
Okay. So first of all, I think that, I think there's a problem brewing in the, I started here. I feel like I've identified a problem that we as agents or owners are not quite aware that we actually have. There's a problem that exists that we don't know that we have. Now, with that being said, we're talking about leads, okay? And, if we go turn back time for 5 years, there was a lot of people talking about, I don't have enough leads. I don't, and maybe people didn't want to self-generate by using like a Mike Ferry system and prospect and generate their own leads. So there are people complaining, I don't have leads. I need leads. I need leads. Well, that problem has been solved. I mean, it's pretty simple. You could go to a lot of people and just throw a little bit of money out there and you can buy leads. So problem solved. The next problem that came about though, is then as more and more people started buying leads, then it got a little bit more competitive and speed to lead became a problem. It's like, an agent could say, well, as long as I call these people back in an hour, I'm fine. And then that was cut to 30 minutes. And then that was cut to 15 minutes. And then it was cut to 5 minutes. You have to respond within 5 minutes. And now it's pretty much, you have to respond in real time, period. I mean, but that problem's been solved. It's either been solved by Zillow from a concierge department, or at least they're attempting to solve it. Or you hired an ISA, or you have multiple agents sharing one cell phone saying, I'll take it between these hours and these hours. So the speed to lead that problem seems to have been solved, or at least the solution exists in the market.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next problem is, well, the conversion, these leads are low quality. Well, I'm going to kind of push back on people that say that, because I don't think that leads are low quality. I think now,
that's interesting.
Most leads that we're getting, most leads are opting in to give us their information. I mean, if you're buying a lead, they're all saying, yes, I want some information. You're not buying a lead from a lead source that's somehow just giving you names and calling them leads. These are people that they're actually the consumers taking the first action. So the problem that I see is not low quality leads. I see, that and the problem that's known is that there's a conversion problem. Like, people are concerned that the leads don't convert as high as they should. But I think that problem has been solved by many people. I think the solution already exists. And that is, you just have to get better at your scripts and dialogues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so you take the same pool of people, give 100 leads to 2 different agents. One agent is going to come out with more leads, more qualified leads, more listings, more buyer and seller clients, because they're more skilled. So that's one way to solve that problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have tested this in my own office years ago where, it's always interesting where a newer agent will come in and we'll teach them how to prospect and generate leads. Right. And it's almost hilarious because it's not 30 days into it where that new agent will say, oh my gosh, nobody ever answers the phone on this list. This list seems to be old, blah, blah, blah. They say the same thing. And then the veteran agents will all look at each other and kind of laugh, right?
Okay.
And I remember, when I didn't have as much patience, or I wasn't as tolerant, as a leader in my office, I'd just say, give me the damn list. And then I'd call behind the list like 2 days later after they called behind the list, and then I'd get a damn lead. I'd set an appointment. And it's like I knew it was never the list. It was how they were approaching the list.
Right.
Was their mindset, where they had a scarcity mindset? Did they have some fear? Were they lacking confidence? Did they not know their scripts? The bottom line is that we know the solution to conversion. And at least when we're talking to people to get them to the next step, that's a skill. That's a skill issue. So you can improve your conversion by improving your skills. Of course, you can improve your conversion speed to lead and things like that also. But those problems are all solved, or at least the solutions are known.
Right.
Whether the agent's doing anything about it, it's different.
Yeah.
So I think that's a long journey to get to what is the one problem that I think people are not aware of that they have. And correcting this one can change their ROI tremendously. And that is, we don't have enough bandwidth to do the proper follow-up that's necessary to convert these leads from lead obtained to lead talked to.
Right.
See, there's a ratio. It's like I get 10 leads and I talk to 4 of them and I don't talk to 6. And then I call tomorrow those 6 and I talk to 1 more of them. So now I've talked to 5, but I paid for 10. I obtained 10 and I only talked to 5. But then by the time the 3rd day comes along, I've gotten more leads. So I don't have time to take those 5 original leads. I don't have time to follow up with them on the 3rd day because I'm dealing with 2 other days leads. And then fast forward 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, 4 months. Now I've got hundreds and hundreds of leads that I don't have enough bandwidth. I don't have enough personal time or staff time to be able to continue to make all these calls. And studies show, you can just Google this information, it's everywhere, that it takes on average around 8, 9, 10 attempts to get these people on the phone.
Yeah.
So if we're buying leads and we got 10 people, 10 leads means 80 attempts. Okay, if it was 10 leads at 8 attempts, that's 80 attempts. Well, then 100 leads is 800 attempts. There's a point where like 1,000 leads is 8,000 attempts. See, there's a bandwidth issue.
Yeah.
And what's happening is we're stockpiling all these names and numbers and emails. And then what's happening is this. I think agents have, instead of acknowledging that they have a bandwidth issue, and this is a follow-up bandwidth issue, not a bandwidth issue to respond to the initial lead that day. It's the 3rd and 4th day that they don't have enough time to go back to them. And then they lose confidence and faith that they're going to answer the phone anyways. So they just stop doing it. And then guess where our minds go? Our minds claim, the real estate agent mind claims, that's a low quality lead. That's a dead lead. That's a non-responsive lead. They're not serious. And here's what I've learned. Dead leads are not dead. They're only dead to you, but they're alive for somebody else. Non-responsive leads are not non-responsive. They're not responding to you, but they're likely responding to someone else. Non-active leads are not non-active. They're just not active on your website, and they're active on someone else's website. So when we solve our follow-up bandwidth issue, we will see less dead, less non-active, and less non-responsive. And now we'll start getting into the point where, gosh, if we pay for 10 leads, we actually talk to 8 of them, not 5 of them. If we got $10 going out for 10 leads and we talk to 8 people and our skill sets stay the same, our return on our investment will go up tremendously. And that's, I think, instead of saying, I can do more business if I spend more money, no, we're spending enough money right now. We're just not capitalizing on all the things, the fruits that we're getting from the money that we're spending. So when we're going into a potential shifting market, we don't know, but a potential shifting market, throwing more money out recklessly is not going to be a solution. It's too risky. We need to kind of step back and start looking at the assets we have in our possession and say, how are we going to optimize the systems to get more out of what we already paid for so we can increase our profitability?
Yeah, and going back to the dead lead. So the lead is not dead; it's only dead to you. And the reason that you know that is because you've been doing the testing. You've been going back to dead leads. It sounds like, and reactivating them and figuring out, hey, these are just people that were never contacted initially, and so got shuffled onto the dead inactive category, not because there was a conversation where they said, I'm not interested in buying a house anymore. That was a mistake on your website. I didn't mean to put in my information. They're never having a conversation, right? And of course, you wouldn't believe that anyway, but
Yeah,
there's no conversation taking place. So they're not, it's
yeah,
not that we're disqualifying them with any knowledge. We're
that's correct.
disqualifying them just due to not being able to reach and contact them. And so if you can figure out a way to contact a higher percentage of them, you can spend the same amount on lead gen, but get a higher return on the time and the money that you lay out there. So the question is, how do you do
Yes.
that? Is the answer just making more calls? Because I know where people's minds are right now, which is that this is Greg Harrelson talking. We must be about to talk about why I need to make more calls.
Got it. Okay. Well, Greg Harrelson is always going to tell you need to make more calls,
That's
right?
right.
Because I'm making an assumption that you're not making any. So like 5 or 6 would be a good number. No. So I'm so glad that you asked that, because that is the problem. The problem that I'm saying is there is a point for the best person out there, the best out there, you still have a bandwidth issue.
Right.
Because we can accumulate leads faster than we can physically call them. Now, this is not about the initial call. It's the 2 to 3 days later that we're no longer able to make multiple attempts. Like you may use Chris Smith's had a great technique years ago that I heard him talk about, and that was double dial.
Yeah.
The double dial, like that's great. You made 2 attempts right there. And then I added the double dial text. And then it went to double dial text, email, right? That became our little routine. Well, that was 4 attempts. But even if you're doing that today, congratulations, because you're probably getting a lot of people on the phone. You're still not going to be enough, because when we get a lead, a lot of times that person doesn't realize or think that we're going to call them back at that minute. So they're at work, right?
Right.
And then they fill out something, and then all of a sudden, within seconds, we're double dialing them, nailing them on text, nailing on emails, and they can't take the call. They can't take the call.
Right.
And so the key is like most real estate agents don't have the bandwidth to maintain that type of intensity in the attempts that they're making for multiple days in a row.
Right.
That's the issue, right? So obviously it's got to be automation.
Yes.
Okay, this has got to be automated, and yes, when it comes to like data, I truly believe that with buyer leads, I truly believe that the conversion rate is really up there in that 10% conversion rate. I believe that that's really what's available for us. Now, we know
over what period of time?
Over, say, a 24, about an 18-month period of time, because,
Okay.
we're capturing the lead earlier now.
Yes.
So we're capturing them in the dreaming phase,
Yeah.
not necessarily in the buy-in phase. So it does take time. But I do believe that at least our numbers show, and we're talking thousands of leads that we've back tested.
Yeah.
Our numbers show that there's around a 10% conversion rate. That's about a good conversion rate that you could expect as a list of leads.
Okay. So just so I understand this, we're not talking about 10% that you believe you can personally capture. You're talking about like in the dead list that you've looked at over an 18-month period, they have converted into doing a transaction.
Yes.
10% of the time. And so that's like the total market share available out of a random list of dead leads.
Yes. Okay. So because right now, I mean, people like to brag that they've got a 3% conversion rate.
Yeah.
But most of the time, even people that say that they have a 3% conversion rate, and listen, I know there's some of you out there that do legitimately have a 3%, but for the most part, the real conversion rate from lead capture to closed transactions amongst the real estate industry is sub 1%. It's less than 1%. So what I'm saying is, as an industry, we're getting less than 1% or 1% as a conversion, but there's 10% available. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is that What that 1% conversion, people are struggling and trying to get it to 2%, thinking if I could get to 2%, I'm excelling in our industry. And I'm saying, no, we're not excelling. That's if you think that the top is 3%, then you're excelling. You're doing really good. The top is 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at the availability of deals that's within our own databases, we are failing miserably. But the people that I'm seeing failing are actually have already solved problem 1, 2, and 3. It's not their skill. It's not their speed to lead. It's they're buying 10 and only getting 5 on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense. Okay. So let's talk about the automation a little bit. So the solution, we talked about the fact that the solution is just not the agent making more calls. You're always, no matter how good you are, you're going to hit the bandwidth issue, and you can always buy more leads than you as the agent, or even a team of agents, or even a team of agents with ISAs, and a team of agents plus a whole team of ISAs. Like no matter what, you can always outspend your own bandwidth, right?
Yeah, or time you're going to accumulate. The compound effect, you're going to accumulate more than you're going to be willing to add ISAs.
Right. Yeah. Because it's a big risk.
Yeah. So I'm pro ISA. So it's not that I'm saying get rid of your ISA. No, don't hear that.
Yeah.
But what's happening is no matter what your structure is, there's still a segment of the list that needs to be worked that you cannot justify actually putting manpower on.
Right.
And that segment is very profitable. And that segment, we usually have segmented that into what we say, these are dead, these are non-responsive, these are inactive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we got to stop putting those labels on that segment, because they're not dead, they're not non-active, they're not non-responsive. They're just all of those things for you.
Yeah.
They're
acres of diamonds all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about how at least either theoretically, or we can talk about it practically. So how does that work? What does the automation look like that reactivates what we would consider dead leads, because we were never able to actually talk to them? We don't know anything that's going on with them. We just know that they raised their hand at some point and they're a quote lead. So what's the automation look like that reactivates them?
You know, the automation, the way that I look at it is this. Okay, day one, new lead comes in. You gotta work them. Like, forget about automation.
Right.
I mean, you got to pick up the phone. You got to do your job, right? Speed to lead, call them, have good skills. But then a couple days later, when you catch yourself saying, if you had all your leads on a piece of paper, which most people have them electronically, I think in paper, old school. You know, when you're turning over the lead and you're dialing, and then you're turning over the lead and you look at that lead and then you say, never mind, I'll dial that one tomorrow, and you turn it over. Whenever you flip over a piece of paper or pass over a lead and you don't call them, then you've already checked out. So that's the category right there where we're just not motivated to make another attempt. Then what we're doing is, and one of my good friends created this, so I've kind of been he's testing it with my office.
Mm-hmm.
But what he did is he created a system similar to like an agent legend type of system, those types of things, where he plugs them in, right? And then depending on what type of lead it is, like an expired, there will be, say, a 6-day campaign that would be a combination of texting, voice broadcasting, and emailing. And all the content is orchestrated in a way where we know nobody responds to the emails. Very few people. Like, it's a low response rate to the emails, a high response rate to the text messages, but we don't get a response on the text messages until around the 8th attempt. 7th and 8th attempt. Now that's on the expired category. So we know right there that it takes a couple, like say 3 or 4 voice broadcasts in a 3 or 4 day period of time. It'll take, multiple emails, maybe 1 email a day in that 3 or 4 day period of time. And then maybe 2, or on average 1.5 text a day for say 4 or 5 straight days. And those type of combinations is what's getting us the response. Now, you got to understand, if you don't want to respond to me, you're probably going to respond to me. Because I'm texting you, then I'm leaving you a voicemail. And then I'm texting you, did you get my voicemail? And then I'm emailing, hey, I don't know if you've been disconnected from your phone, but I just wanted to check, see if you got the email or if you're getting my messages. and I keep going over and over and over again, you are going to respond to me. If anything, you're going to respond, say, hey, I'm not interested. Perfectly fine. Like, we're talking about the 5 people you're not getting on the phone. If one was to tell me I'm not interested, that's better than me not having any engagement at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I know, like, they could say, no, I've already listed with somebody else, or I already purchased. Fine. Then I can take them out of the queue so we never dial them again. All of that is helping me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's by using those channels of communication, orchestrating it in a way, like in a campaign, where, you know, you're saying this one time, and make sure that, you know, 4 hours later, this voice rod goes out and says, hey, I just wanted to see if you got my text. I'm sure you're busy. Texting you in the middle of the day. You could be busy, you know, doing some work, but I wanted to, you know, ask you a few questions. Could you respond? You know, or, you know, please give me a call here.
Yeah.
They're not going to call me back. They're going to eventually respond to me on text. But the reason why they're going to respond to me on text is because I believe in their minds, they say, man, this person's really working their butt off, really trying. They're letting me off the hook. They're actually being courteous to me by responding to me. Instead of saying, man, because I'm putting in so much effort, right?
Right,
to
right.
reach these people. So what we're seeing is we can take our dead leads, or non-responsive or inactive, which we don't really call them that, but that's how most people, you know, connect with it. And we're going to get a 38 to 40% response rate on that list. That is going to be the list that we've already went through and can't get anybody on the phone, can't get anyone to respond. So this is the people that we're putting, most of the time, agents are putting these people in the trash can.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
And so we're getting them out of the trash can and getting them back into engage. We're trying to engage with them. Now,
Right. And that's why you said,
some of the responses will be, I'm not interested, please, you know, no need to contact me anymore. That's okay too. That, like, we jump up with joy, because we're talking about 5 leads out of 10 that we're never going to talk to, and we got an engagement from them. Fantastic.
Okay.
So we're taking listings from expireds. We're converting buyers. This is, I mean, from all the categories, we've been doing this. So that's why I'm saying people don't know that we have this problem.
Right.
And I don't know anyone that's really solving it. You know.
That's really good. Okay. So 35 to 40% response, you're saying some of those could be negative responses. So we're not talking about they raised their hand again and said, yeah, I want to talk to somebody about buying or selling. So it's not that, but it is a response.
Yeah.
A high percentage of those are going to be, you know, I'm still interested.
Sure. Yeah.
And then at that point, you mentioned earlier, like, you know, we're not saying get rid of your ISAs. This is not a replacement. This is a supplement, because at that point, it sounds like if you're running all this automation, if you're a single high producing agent, that call would go to you. But if you're a team that has ISAs, that sounds like the perfect time for an ISA to step in and do what an ISA does, right? So at the point where they re-engage, they get a call back maybe from the ISA.
Yeah. So in my office, we do have an ISA, and I only have one ISA, but that one ISA is actually doing your traditional ISA job, you know, all the things that they do. And she's running this system on the ones that she cannot ever get a hold of. She's running them through this system. And then while she's doing stuff over here, opportunities are bubbling up over here. And so that's how we were able to increase our bandwidth. So it doesn't matter if it's an individual agent or an ISA. An individual agent typically has less leads than an agent that has an ISA. And an agent with an ISA has less leads than a team with 3 ISAs. But let me tell you one thing that's common amongst all 3 of them. They got a bandwidth issue.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I think the role of the ISA is going to be interesting to see that evolve. I can see it being someone sitting in front of like a stock trader style, like 6 or 9 monitor setup. And all they're doing is monitoring either outgoing or ongoing, like automated communication between an AI bot of some kind and the prospect, who's going to start responding more by Facebook message and text, like you mentioned. That's how they're going to start to interact. And then I think at some point the AI will take over and get to the point where they can have some of the initial conversations, and then the ISA can step in and take over the conversation at whatever point we deem necessary. But yeah, I think that role is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And this is one of those very first steps towards it. So like, what phase are we? Like, how far are we away from like the product that your friend is developing? How far are we away from that being like deployable for the people that are listening?
I'm going to assume he's probably a month away before like he goes out and allows people to, sign up for it, or, I guess hire the service or whatever, you subscribe to the service. Say it's about a month away. From my standpoint as a user of it, it's we're using it right now.
Gotcha. And this is not, just to clarify, this is not something where you need like the Greg Harrelson long-term nurture. Like, this isn't based on some of the other things that you're doing to stay in touch with people over the long term. This is literally going back and reactivating old leads that you're not in communication with. So even if you don't have like the Greg Harrelson database nurture system, like all that other stuff, it has nothing to do with that. This is something else.
Completely independent. Yeah. See, like you're referring, like our Infusionsoft stuff that we had created years ago. And we still use Infusionsoft and for long-term drip.
Yes.
So that's a long-term drip system, or whether it's my Infusionsoft or whatever you're using for long-term drip. The thought behind that long-term drip is over the long haul, deliver value to as many people as you can, even those that are never thinking or haven't thought about doing business. And then because you're delivering value over time, you're going to build trust and authority, and you'll be their go-to person when they have a referral or they need to do business. That's the long-term nurturing program. This is not long-term. This is like high intensity, high attempts of contacts in a very short span of time. So this would be like a campaign for what we're talking about here would be a maximum of probably 10 days. That'd be the maximum a campaign would last. And we know, again, that the average person is going to respond on the 8th attempt. We already know that because we're tracking all the data. So we know now that it just takes about 8 attempts before they respond. And what I liked what he did is I can see when they open the email. So if I'm running say a 6-day campaign on somebody and they're opening the email, but they're still not responding. So we will let that be a trigger where the agent will manually go and try to reach them because we know. So if they're opening the email, after a while, if they weren't what we think somewhat in the game, then they'd stop opening the emails, but they keep opening the emails. It's just always the response comes from the text. So it's important that the emails be constructed in a way, if we know that they're going to open them, then that's our opportunity to put some sort of information or verbiage in front of them that helps build that trust. We're not anticipating the email response, but we are going to use that split second or two that we have their attention to impress upon them some message that we think improves our chance of getting them to engage with us via text.
Right. All right. That makes total sense. That's going to be interesting. So if we're only a month out, that'll be awesome to see how that develops.
Yeah. We've been using it for, I don't know, 2 months maybe. And, like any technology, I laugh at them because it breaks and whatnot. So, that's, so he said, it's okay if it breaks on me. You just can't have it breaking on anybody else.
All right. Well, let's close out with this. So, because we don't, this will be released later. I know your standard line is just like reach out to you via Facebook Messenger and so forth. It sounds like that's probably the best way, since we can't talk publicly about just who it is, what it is, the brand and all that stuff. And the time is, we don't know what the timing is. So it sounds like the best way is just to kind of reach out to you and kind of see where things are at if you're listening to this episode, just to see if it's out yet or not.
Yeah. And I can say this. I know that he does have a landing page, I think, up, and it's contactjunkie.com. So the name of his company is called Contact Junkie, Junkie.
Okay, perfect.
That's a good name, huh? Contact
Not
Junkie.
Bad. Scale
because
your
that's
business
what
and
he's
tack
doing.
on expensive staff. I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I think I haven't been. I think he showed it to me, but I think all you can do is probably put like an email, and he'll let you know. If,
There's basically a Google form. So just name, sell, your market, your company name. And then you can get on the list to be the first in your market to test drive it. Sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this was interesting. This is one of the most in-depth episodes. I love how your brain works on this, and I love that you're the only one I know that thinks about it at such a deep level to even uncover and describe and identify the problem that way.
Yeah.
And that comes from being just in the trenches and doing it like with your agents all the time. So yeah, that was super fun.
Yeah.
For anybody that's listening, if you enjoy like these types of episodes, we've done other ones on this where Greg and I go deep on something specific. Those are all on the website, theleveluppodcast.com, or you can catch them on YouTube as well. If you enjoy the show, make sure to go rate and review us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever platform you listen on. You can leave us a 5-star rating. If there was a particular guest episode that you really enjoyed, you can give them a shout out in the rating to let them know, to kind of thank them for their contribution. Or if you just like Greg, give him a shout out.
There you go. I don't have anybody like just sending me those types of message.
Well, they should reach out to you on Messenger. Just thank you for doing the podcast, because the stuff that you bring, good Lord, man. Like you and I haven't even talked about, like this is a behind the scenes at a conference, like sitting out on the couches type of conversation. Yeah. And I've been privileged to have a couple of those with you. And that's literally the only place I've ever heard people talk about at this depth, essentially.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah. I tell you, I'm in such a good position because I am in the trenches and I am focusing on developing my agents, right? And so I'm an agent's coach. I mean, for the most part, that's what I do. That's what I'm passionate about. And so the way that my company is structured and the model of the company, I'm forced to dig deep into finding solutions for my agents. And so I'm not trying to find solutions for an industry and thinking, hey, let's create this product so I can sell it to an industry. I'm thinking I have got to help my agents build their business. So because I stay at, I've got to help this agent get from 30 deals to 70 deals, then I stay in that dialogue. So I think it's a whole different set of conversations that I get to have. It forces me to analyze it differently, because I'm not thinking about like building solutions to go to a market for something. I'm thinking about, I've got this responsibility to help this agent get from this point to another point, that type of thing. So I think it gives me a real advantage.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Rather than thinking about it in terms of trying to come up with a product to sell, you're thinking of it in terms of starting with the real problem and the person who experiences it and how they're experiencing it. Like you really get into the problem.
I'm trying to solve my problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the bottom. Yeah. Let me be clear here. What we just talked about is a problem that we have in my company. Mm-hmm. And so me and my CFO and my friend, we've been talking about this problem, and like, we know the problem, we've got to find the solution. So really what we're doing is we're just trying to solve our own problem so we can continue to excel. And then every once in a while, something works because we create a lot of solutions that just go bust completely. I mean, maybe we need to have an episode of all the screw ups that I've had.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
I'm only sharing the winners with you.
Actually, that would be a blast. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, I'll start making a list of all the things that I thought was going to be the next big thing. That was completely a bust.
All right. Awesome. Well, Greg, this has been fantastic. So super pumped for people to hear this episode. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us, and everything that you do, make sure that people reach out to you on Facebook Messenger to connect.
All right. Take care.